guys, welcome back to the channel. This is my rundown Remnants Part 2 LUFENIA. This is going to be the Act 3 Chapter 4 Part 2 LUFENIA, or one of the LUFENIAs that are in there. And again, I'm bringing in Terra, Setzer, and Core. The video started a little late because the beginning of it got like a little glitchy. It was all glitchy and corrupted, so had to start just a tad bit late. But here in the first wave of bosses, there's really nothing to it. I didn't really bring healers in the party, so just make sure that you're not taking any HP damage, which technically you can if, you know, everybody gets broken, things like that. They don't have any devastating attacks, but if you do take HP damage, then you're not going to be hitting as hard as you should in the second wave where it really matters, because Ifrit's summon effect won't have an effect, or your character that's HP is under 80% won't have Ifrit's attack up aura. So just make sure you're finishing these guys as quickly as possible. And I want to talk about the second wave of bosses, which is, I believe, in my case, one of the harder LUFENIAs that I have played by far. These guys are really annoying. There's just a lot of different mechanics, from outrageously high defenses to extreme shields of upward, like each one has 800,000 shield value. It's just it's crazy. It was just really difficult to get by. They can put you to sleep, which means you can't attack. They forcefully inflict heat, which is HP poison, so you are going to be taking HP damage. So I was trying to figure out how to do it without bringing any healers into the party, because I really needed to kill these guys as fast as I possibly could. And so that's where Setzer was like the key here as well. Everybody plays a very crucial part in this mission, but Setzer is the one I feel made it happen. I had done a run with Afmal, and I did get, I think, down to like the enemy down to like 3 turns or something like that, and so I know that it could work with Afmal, but I didn't record that one, and I just kind of exited out of the stage, and it was tough with Afmal. So I was trying to figure out how to do it even easier, because I know a lot of people when Setzer was available, should have pulled for Setzer. So I might run this back with Afmal to show that even that Afmal can do this, because I think this is more revolved around her. But other than that, this boss and the start of the wave, you're going to see that they are going to start at 100% HP with a took a defense posture. They're going to gain huge brave gain, 50% speed boost, 100% defense increase. They're immune to instant breaks, so like Jack, for example, won't work, things like that, or Strago. And you have to break them in order to remove that stance. So you have to prepare during the first wave on how you're going to break them for the second one. So for example, if you have Sephiroth in your party, you want to make sure you save his EX. And don't use it on the first wave, use it on the second wave. That way you can bring down their brave and break them. Now here, my two options were Core with his Reaper's Gale, which is already available, but I'm going to decide to go with Setzer's LD Dive Bomb, because I do need to put the buff Fixed Dice on Terra, because in order for this, in order to increase the orb count, you need to do two things. Do fire damage, but with 150% HP damage. So again, fire damage at 150,000 HP damage will increase the orb. So you have to bring some super heavy hitting DPSs here, and since you see that I have nobody in the party that has any type of fire attack, then how did I do it? Well, I ended up bringing fire calls. So for example, Lulu, I brought in Lulu because she gives everybody 6 turns of fire enchant. So here, with these enemies, I want to let them take a turn, because if they don't take a turn and you lower down their HP below 80%, their turns are going to be framed, and they're going to have huge defenses. Huge defenses. You're not going to be able to get through this match with their turns being framed. You're just not. So here on their first turn, they're going to inflict, I believe it's heat. Heat is a brave and HP poison. Now that you have the poison on, that's where you're going to take your damage. Now you'll see that the orb is down to 1. So instead of using Lulu's Call, I need to summon. The reason I'm going to summon instead of using Lulu's Call, which is what I recommend, is saving your call towards the end of the match, is because you only have to remove 20% of their health to remove the orb. And so with the summon, you're only going to get 6 turns. You're not going to be able to do that when their orb reappears at like 50% of their health. It's at 49%, but when the orb appears at 49%, you're not going to be able to increase the orb enough with only 6 turns during this summon phase. But where Lulu is she's gonna end up enchanting the whole party with fire enchant for 6 turns on each person's turn. So Terra is gonna just fly right through those turns, but Core is not, and Setzer is not. And that Core and Setzer with Lulu's fire enchant is what's gonna get you, or at least gonna get me through the second part of the orbs. So here it's about using Terra, and she's the only one I think at this right now that could do that type of, guarantee me that type of damage on both enemies, so that way both of their orbs go up. Now you could bring Ignis, I believe, if you have him fully maxed out, which I don't. That's the reason I didn't bring Ignis. I don't know if you could bring Lulu as a character, because these guys are pretty tanky and she just doesn't do any damage. But I haven't seen anybody else's runs. I need to check after this video if I've seen any Lulu runs. If anything, then I'll post them. I'll post them in like the comments or something, so you guys can check them out. So here, now that they have taken an attack, remember, if they did not take an attack and I would have delayed them, whatever, and now they're out of their LUFENIA orb, they would have had framed buffs, and then all these turns that you see wouldn't have done any damage whatsoever. So that's the reason you have to let them take a turn at the very beginning. Then once after they take that turn, do not let them take a turn again at all. If not, the reason you don't want them to take another turn is because they have this one attack that ruins literally the whole fight for you. At least for me, that's what I've noticed. And that is going to be an attack called Maelstrom. Maelstrom is going to reduce all of your brave down to 1, and it's going to dispel all your buffs. On top of that, it has a high turn rate. So with that being said, they're going to get attacks much quicker. You're not going to have any buffs on you, and that's where it starts to become a problem. So Core, for example, when he puts his buff on an ally to do some type of, or to do his move right before your ally does an attack, that's going to be gone. So now you're not dealing that damage, and then on top of that, most of your buffs are going to a lot of times be for max brave up, attack up, things like that. So that's why you cannot let them take a turn. That's why I brought Sephiroth. So here I could take as much advantage of his burst as much as I can, but with the exception of not using all of Terra's LD or Chaos Wave. The reason I'm saving 2 of Terra's LDs is because when they get to 29%, they're gonna have each they're gonna absorb or they're gonna have a shield that absorbs 800,000 HP damage, each one of them. So you're not going to be able to do any damage at that time. And then what also is going to happen is, if you're not doing any damage, although you're enchanted with fire, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to end up not increasing the orb count. So you have to remove the shields as fast as possible. So that's the reason I saved 2 of Terra's LDs, so that I could try to remove those shields as quickly as possible. and I wouldn't use, let's say, core to do so. Reason being is because if core is already enchanted with fire and you're using those moves that he's enchanted with fire to remove the shield, it's not helping for the orb. So I'm trying to save Lulu's enchant on core so that way after you break the shields, remember they still have like 29% health. By that time their orb count is going to be, I think, pretty low, that you need to start using cores LD to then get, Reaper's Gale and guarantee that you're hitting for over 150,000 while you are enchanted with fire. So if you could tell, that's why this stage is it was very tricky. It took me a long time to complete it because I wasn't really checking out other runs. I just kind of looked at the boss notes and tried to put a team together. For me, it just makes it a little funner than to watch a video where a team's already set for you, things like that. Nothing wrong with that, but something that I used to do in the beginning, and then now I'm like, you know what, I want to make it a little bit more challenging and just try to look at what the boss does and try to run it through the team that I think I should do it with. Now, one of the things I would recommend if you are going to use this team and you have the characters that I have, is I should have done or used Paladin Cecil's call way earlier, because this whole time I haven't even been taking advantage of the summon effect, because for Ifrit your HP has to be over 80% in order to have, I think, an increased attack of like 25%, I think it is, or 30% increased attack. So here it's going to be continuously just doing as much damage as possible, saving one of the dive bombs for the very end as well, so that way once their shields come up, I'm doing as much damage as possible. Right now, one thing you have to also be careful for is the orb. Since I have one fire enchanter, I need to make sure that I use it at the right time, because Terra has Lulu's Call. I gotta make sure that there's at least a few turns where I use Lulu's Call ahead of time. Because if, let's say for example, I let the orb go down to 2 and it's not Terra's turn, and then somebody else goes, like Core or Setzer, then the orb goes down to 1. Then you're gonna use Lulu's Call, and now you trigger the orb. So like right here, I noticed that Terra's turn was gonna come up in time. So here, there's 2 counts on the orb. So now I enchant the whole party with fire, and now only 1 turn left on the orb. So that's where I'm gonna go ahead and use the Chaos Wave. So Chaos Wave mixed with the fixed dice buff to guarantee that I'm hitting for crit and doing as much damage as possible, you'll start to see the orb obviously go up. And the damage output is just from here on is going to be significantly higher. Their HP is going to drop pretty quickly. Now, the fixed dice is also going to help, because look, at 29% right now. Now, look at this shield. There you go, 800,000. And Terra's barely getting through it as well. So whenever one of them reaches a 29%, they're both going to get that shield. You notice B's not taking any damage whatsoever either, because they both have the shield. And you have to remove the shield from both of them. So that's why I'm using Terra's Meltdown, and then, the Meltdown move, and then here I'm using her LD, so that way, again, this is just basically for the shields. So if you start looking at the orb, although I'm dealing, she was enchanted with fire and I'm dealing damage, but the orb is counting down. So with the orb counting down like this, you have to take away that shield as soon as possible. Once you end up inflicting 150 HP damage while fire enchanted, both of the orbs should be going up. So here you're going to see I'm going to barely make it. So here I'm going to go ahead and use Reaper's Gale. Then I'm going to use Core's LD, and remember, he's enchanted with fire, and there it is. Now I'm able to do, now that I did 150,000 fire damage, both orbs are going to go up on both enemies, and they're going to go up again. This is why it's very crucial, I think, to, if you don't have anybody in your party that fire enchants, it was crucial to have Lulu and making sure that you did not waste the fire enchant that's on Core, because Core does most of his damage, I feel, a lot of his damage, like an off-turn damage. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would have honestly have made it here, because the orb I think was down to like 1, if I'm not mistaken. So another character that could have been brought is going to be El Narsh. I know that El Narsh does, with this Terra attack, he won't let them use any of their attacks, because all their attacks target everybody. So in order for that, when you put Terror is not going to allow the enemies to attack if they are targeting El Narsh, and an all attack also counts for that. So here you'll see that now the orb, I'm bringing it up. The count is definitely going up. I'm saving the Paladin Cecil's CP, because I didn't know if their turn was going to come up and if they were going to deal more damage and if I needed to heal, because that was one of the other problems I was having, is meeting the HP requirements, which I believe for these bosses are somewhere around like 5,000 or 8,000 for HP, for the HP requirement. And that's it. At this point, it's just trying to use, I used Freeze Joker just in case they were going to do like an HP attack, and then here using Holy Flame to go ahead and just heal all the way back up. And then I'm going to try to use Setzer's red card to delay them. They're just trying to keep pushing back their turn as much as possible. And I think Terra helped as much as Setzer did. Setzer helped out as much as Core did, and Core helped out as much as all the other two characters did. And you'll see that I just checked to make sure that Core still has his enchant from Lulu, and then that way I can still take advantage of that and keep the orbs as high as possible. Although they're pretty low now on their HP, but their turns are fairly close, and so I'm just trying to avoid them from attacking and then inflicting another debuff, which is going to guarantee you taking HP damage. And this is why I saved the last dive bomb here, is for the last part after their shields. So I was trying to save one dive bomb for their shields, and then the second dive bomb for the second half, or for the last part of their life under 30%, while being enchanted with Lulu, to guarantee that everybody kind of contributed to increasing the orb count. Again, I've tried different. I try to run different teams here, and when you do defeat one of them, I don't think the other one, or the other one does enrage, I believe. But at this point, I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can't even defeat one I think if you really wanted to. If all you're bringing is fire calls, you won't have enough time on your enchant to defeat one and then come back and then try and defeat the other one. So you have to get them. You have to just kind of burn them both down as quickly as possible together. If you defeat one, it's not going to be a huge problem, especially if you do have like Setzer's dive bomb still at the very end. That's another reason I saved it as well, because of that, just in case I had to defeat one of the bosses to only really deal with one boss. And now with Setzer's red card delaying that boss, so he does not take a turn. And you'll see that although I kept the orb pretty high, it's ticking down, and I mean, I'm still cutting it, fairly close here. And even then, the turn count, I believe for this one is 80. So I'm getting extremely close to the 80 turn count, but it's going to be completely fine. Everybody now without Setzer's LD buff, and then having the enrage, everybody's they're not even reaching 100,000 damage. So as you can see here towards the end, this is how difficult the fight could be if you're not bringing in Setzer, if you're not bringing in the right calls, things like that. It's going to be a big pain in the ass. So as much as I hate these type of, or these kind of fights are annoying, that's the reason I really like the game, because of the harder content like this. Makes you really have to either pull for the right characters or think your way through it. So hopefully the video helped. If you guys do attempt to go through the stage, good luck, and let me know who you guys use to complete it. And if you guys are having trouble and you subscribed, I'll try to run it with the team you're trying to complete it with to see if I can help. Alright, good luck. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. Also, let me know in the comment section what you think about this mission and who you used to complete it. Check the links in the description for Opera Omnia websites that give you a bunch of helpful information, and I'll see you on the next one.